So we got. How did the little online one go? Did that go good? Have we got someone to report back on that? Maybe we do that first, and then we'll go through the other two groups really quickly. Thanks, Jess. Have we got group 2? I think it was. Is someone going to?
Yeah,
Thanks, Tim.
I've got my support person behind me just in case I can't read. So we will start with the question one. Here we go. Yes, agree with the outcomes and priorities they represent, e.g., the PARA framework, which is good. More onus on the values of the river, values in their own right, adapting and more river. So what does that look like? Which just I think that was something Genevieve was very interested in. Agreed standards, levels of the investment. I'm not sure what that says. Sorry. Biggest. Oh, so this was around the bigger schemes have more ability potentially to carry out some of the work or to have more influence rather than some of the smaller groups and we're kind of seeing some of that on the Selwyn River was used as an example. Bigger schemes may have more ability to do some of the work, but some of the smaller landowners or landholders might not be able to implement some of the stuff that we're asking if there wasn't funding available. That's what I believe I heard. There was, whereas the connection with the outcome around critical infrastructure was something that we've picked up. This is around lifelines. This is infrastructure parties. We've also talked about banking industry and insurance industry, because all of those are really, really critical in the long run, that they were the ones that are going to have to be party to what we're talking about. What else have we got over here? The objectives that... sorry. What was that one you circled here? Cultural...
Oh, so that was the point around having an objective that looks at cultural monitoring.
Oh, yes, that was cultural monitoring frameworks. So are there any opportunities such as what they're doing at Te Wharekai? And I think is down at Arowhenua. How could we potentially look at bringing some of those into the objectives that we've got in the rivers? We talked a little bit about rangatiratanga. Actually, the rest of this was covered off by you, Jesse. There was what was some of the implications of central government direction was talked to us about a little bit, and just keeping an eye on that and keeping that mindful in our strategy. Natural capital objectives and recreational values was something else that we thought was a little bit missed. We're talking about a lot about natural character and all that, but what are the recreational values and why? How could they be enhanced as well? And do you want me to go on to question 2, or is it just we were just doing question 1? Okay, well, so quickly go through question 2, the land strategy. Pleased, it's feeling like it's on the right track. We need some timeframes in it around feedback loops as well. Finance and revenue might have been more of a priority, and not the only priority, but potentially a bit more of a priority, especially given what it looks at the moment, just our land. What are the gaps? So focused on current land. What are the opportunities? So we talked a little bit about potential, like what are strategic purchasing opportunities that the council may have, and what does that look like, both in terms of source water protection or stormwater protection, such as silt runoff in Port Hills, or even for critical infrastructure stuff like our PT network. Physical and natural heritage was something that we thought we needed to have a little bit of an explanation somewhere. Right to occupy were not talked about. I didn't really feel there was anything around our current leases around the airport, where we've got some of those industrial sites on. And I think that really covered most of what we were talking about there. Is there anything that I may have missed from the other people that were in the group? Excellent, thank you.
Well done, Dion. Thank you. In terms of Group 1, going back to the first question, the Braid River Revival stuff. First point, we thought that droughts maybe need to be mentioned because they also impact people and property. So thinking about that as balancing that with the flood and river resilience focus. We sort of thought that there could be some more detail, but then we did have a discussion in both parts about the trick will really be how we pull these objectives or outcomes objectives and the we wills into the actions and the implementation stuff, because we feel like there's a lot of overlap between obviously the 3 outcomes and then the objectives under each outcome. There's quite a lot too. We acknowledge that there's quite a lot there. So when we got to that prioritisation question 2 and the second question, we think the trick is in the actions that get created, because those actions might relate to, say, 5 out of the 10 objectives, for example, and when it does, or more hopefully, that's a really good action, and then you can prioritise action. So yeah, we sort of didn't completely answer the prioritisation other than to say the trick is in how the next stage goes. We also discussed things about how it links to the 30-year infrastructure strategy and the draft RPS, FMUs, subcatchments, etc., but also getting more specific around the ability to design, plan, cost, and construct appropriate infrastructure. And that could be multiple infrastructure, like even room for river is a part of infrastructure, secondary flow path, stop banks, etc. So all of that, and having the scope not just to maintain what we've got, maintain and improve what we've got, but look at new infrastructure that might need to be created over time. I think that's really important that that's locked in there. And yeah, we also talked about people, not putting people and property in the way of risk. So that was brought up by the other group as well. And just trying to think. Oh, we talked about the rangatiratanga stuff a little bit and got some clarification, and talked from Ian in terms of he felt like it's about embedding Papatupi Runanga in the governance of the strategies, like is happening in the gravel management space. So I think there's some words in the gravel management work that I understand Yane and Ian talked about that might be able to be looked at to bring that into this. So hopefully that's helpful. In terms of the natural character and in terms of the biodiversity stuff, I definitely put forward and got sort of broad agreement that we think that it's not just about maintaining biodiversity; it's actually about getting biodiversity gain, because maintaining sort of no longer appropriate. We've got to be looking to improve, and that might be a percentage improvement, but that we improve, that we're biodiversity positive. So that's something to think about both for this and the land strategy. And just trying to get to that last bit on the strategy stuff. Yeah, like I said, we think that and good point about the recreational values. We didn't talk about that, but I think that is quite a good point. We also felt that the partnership stuff is really important. So how we link to LINs, DOC, TLAs, Runang, and even private landowners, like our neighbours around our land, is going to be pretty important. More in the river space than in some of the other types of spaces like Dion talked about, the industrial land or whatever we've got. But we think that's important to have a vision about how that works and how you can bounce off what your neighbours are doing in that river corridor space. And thought that climate change probably needs a bit of thought in that stuff as well. And we did talk about the acquisition and disposal stuff and think that is important in the context of this as well. So having good plans for how that works. So I think Group 2 mentioned that as well. So I think that's it. Anything else that our group wants to know? Yeah, Ian?
Look, I just want to make a comment. I've got it on. To me, this discussion paper it feels like it was driven from the bottom up rather than the top down. So we're not clear on what it is we're trying to achieve. And as a consequence, we've got dug a whole lot of, if you put it into a military context, where you have a strategy, the aim is to win the battle. We've dug a whole lot of trenches, filled them up with soldiers. We're not even sure if we're facing the enemy, really, because we don't know. We haven't clearly defined what it is we're trying to achieve. And I think you need to do that and then drive the strategy down from there. And then you need to look at some of the things we're trying to do, which is a whole of district or catchment plans, blueprints for what it looks like. And that's to deliver the outcomes, which is natural character and abraded rivers and a degree of protection and resilience. But we don't even define what that level of protection is, and we should be doing that because we have a position on that as a council. So I just was hugely underwhelmed by this paper, and I think it needs a significant rework, and it's got to be driven from the top down rather than the bottom up about all the things that we're already trying to do. The problem we have in the river space is that we've got so many different strategies, but there's a whole lot of muddling going on, and this particular strategy doesn't seem to me to clear it out. So if you go to the land strategy, why have we got land endowed to the regional council in the first place? It was to provide land for flood protection and to fund that. But we don't mention that in the land strategy and so the land strategy should be then about if that's the objective, how is it we can achieve that? And whether it's Joe's comments about solar, energy production or whatever it is, that's about increasing income so that there's less impost on our ratepayers. And if it's about biodiversity values, let's say that. But it's how that fits into that strategy. But at the end of the day, we haven't clearly defined the overarching outcomes of what we're looking for here, and so we're not. So the strategy itself is missing the point.
Grant?
Yeah, look, I thought it was a really good. There's obviously some things that you're still developing. Maps for the next stage provide a little bit of reality, but one of the reference maps that I use is that one there, which was the early Braided River revival, highly conceptual plan, and I think I've got that from a presentation council was given on the 27th of May 2020, because there are councillors in this room who didn't see that document. I think it would be useful for you to circulate that to people, because as a way to say that this is what we're doing. It mentions lots of things that we've just talked about and that are in the objectives and stuff, but in a simplified graphical way. I think just picking up Craig saying, for me, it is the context of the whole of catchment, and the corridor is within that. The whole of the catchment brings into land management for the private sector or interagency land or whatever, but it's looking at the broader scale picture of how do you deal with those things that can reduce the need for excessive protection measures downstream. What is the cost benefit analysis of doing something outside our land, outside the river?
Thanks, Grant. And yeah, Verity took really good notes, so we've got some good stuff on here that, and Murray and others heard it as well. So what Ian and Grant said was captured really well, if I didn't relay it. So cool. Thank you. Jan?
Oh, Kia ora. I was just wondering if Councillor Davies would like to give any feedback.
Just some very small things from me, just around the language used. I think it would be good to kind of use language around the public, around ratepayer, around regional assets, rather than kind of the council or organisational, just to really reflect that it is public land. And agree with Grant around some more information. Of course, that's more operational than strategic, but it still might be good for councillors and the public to have a real clear visual representation of what their land is, and also around the breakdown of the 30-odd thousand hectares that we own into the different land uses. And then, yeah, I agree with Craig's point around the clarity around the process of when land may move in and out of regional holdings. And then finally, energy development is a priority I think we should look at, especially in the current environment that we're in.
Thanks, Joe. Cool. So I think that's really thanks staff for the workshop, for the work, and that the next stages are going to be really important. And looking forward to when we see those I think a lot of the councillors are looking for the detail, and those drafts I'm sure is going to be the important next step where we see that detail, and including some of the mapping and stuff. So thanks for the workshop. I know we've got to go to a public excluded one next, I'm pretty sure. So thank you. And who's coming up to do that? Is it same team? Cool. So we'll just give the Katie the ability to change that over.